Okay, so this is chapter 1. And there's... Okay, so we need to talk about a theory. And if you guys remember, theories have lots of evidence, and they come from different fields. This particular theory is an old theory. Scientists started figuring this out hundreds of years ago. And there is, the way your author has described theory is it's put it into 2 parts, number 1, number 2. I do want you guys to realize that sometimes you see it listed as 3, meaning that this number 1, cells or products made by cells are the unit of structure and function in organism. So like atom is to matter, cells are to, what do cells make up? Life, which organisms are life, right? So once again, atoms to matter as cells to life. There's a nice analogy there, okay? Now, the deal here is this thing I put in parentheses, all organisms are made of cells. Sometimes when we're talking about the theory at a very simplistic way, they say that's number 1, and then they say that cells are a part of structure and function of life is number 2. It's redundant though, right? If cells are part of the structure and function of life, then is not all life made of cells? Okay, but I did want to point that out because you're going to see 1, 2, 3, and you're going to get all pissy going, why is there 3 and there's only 2 here? Okay, so that's what the deal is, right? Now, the theory could be changed and adjusted. We're the ones making the rules. We're the ones making the definition of what a cell is. For example, are viruses made up of cells? Are viruses made up of cells? And you might not know that, which is fine, so let's get that straight right now. Viruses are complex molecules that have some of the characteristics of life. So, and one problem why we can't call them alive is they're not made up of cells, okay? Question? So we can change the rules if we want. They're nice. They're an intermediate between what we're defining as life and complex molecules that are able to move around and then replicate, even though these are parasitic. So they have to get inside cells to reproduce. So they need cells to do what they do. But can they adapt? Can they evolve? Yeah. So some people might argue that we need to relook at what is alive and what's not, or who cares? This is just a definition, right? I don't know. This is up for future scientists to dwell on if they choose. But right now, they're not considered alive. The second part of the cell theory, all cells come from pre-existing cells. Indica, I need your guys' attention. Okay? Now, as of least the environment on Earth right now, Alex, it's the same thing. Please focus. What the deal is, on Earth right now, we cannot make a cell. We can make artificial parts of a cell that are then just like parts, like we can make cell membranes. But so far, we've not been able to make life. All life on Earth right now is coming from other cells. Okay, we're getting pretty close. Earlier, talking about the poor baby with burned and then growing those cells. They've gotten now where they've made synthetic skin cells that are helping these burn victims as well. So we are getting there. Have you guys heard too about making like fake ears for people that have lost their ears? But they're not 100% viable like these cells yet. But we are getting close. In an accident.
So they created a microscopic invention for the cells.
Sure. We have lots of discoveries that are at the microscopic level. We'll get to more of that when we get to biotech, which is around the corner. Okay, so then the other main important point, so I'd write this down, is you need to realize that there's a huge variety of cells. We've already talked about that today with the different types. Up here, the gold rods, these are bacteria, extremely small, right? Are they prokaryotes or eukaryotes? Prokaryotes. These other three, unicellular algae, cells from a liver, plant cells, prokaryotes or eukaryotes? Eukaryotes. Plants, animals, and you would consider the unicellular algae Protista kingdom. Okay? The blue right here, pretty nuclei. What are the green things? Chloroplasts. Awesome. Okay, so yes, we've been talking about some inventions you guys mentioned. So what invention was necessary for this science to even come to be? Awesome, you guys. Okay, so the microscope came. The microscope, again, is hundreds of years old. The same type of microscope we use, the light microscope, was invented hundreds of years ago. But just in this last century, in the 1930s, maybe Star highlight that, what was the new type of microscope we invented? Electron. Now these are dangerous. We need to have these cool big machines. I'll show you on the next slide. The sample must be killed, and that way, the light microscope can look at behavior and movement and other things that this can't. But the electron microscope can get really, really small, and they're large. You could see this, the microscope itself is in the silver cylinder. You have to use a computer to see what's going on in the cylinder. And what it is they coat the specimen and they bombard it with electrons, so you get like a topography map of it. So yeah, kind of like sonar. So this B picture, you could see what I mean. So now we got the outside shape. That is a scanning. The one on top A is transmission. I think these pictures, you have to check with, I'm pretty sure, they're the same thing. The scanning, the transmission gets crosscuts. We'll talk more about the microscopes later, but we can get really, really small. Love this diagram. Take some time with it in your book and kind of get an idea of the size of these things. We have yet to see a hydrogen atom, even with like an electron microscope. It is too small. So our picture, our model of the atom with the protons and the neutrons and the electrons flying around, you draw the orbits. We have never seen that. We have just problem solved, and it's a theory, and that's what the atomic theory, and we think that's what the atom looks like, okay? But we have seen larger atoms, or we do this other thing called crystallography X-rays, where you crystallize the molecules, like this is how DNA was figured out through Rosalind Franklin, and she took X-rays of her crystal shapes, and now you have a pattern that you can see, right? It's the same thing. You guys don't see the bones when you fracture your bone, you see an X-ray of your bones. So we have all these cool ways of seeing this really small stuff. So here's viruses. Are viruses smaller than prokaryotes? Yes, you can see the bacteria line right here. They're in micrometers. Viruses are down in nanometers. Do you remember what a nano is? 1 billionth. The funny U, micro, is 1 millionth of a meter, right? Okay, we talked about this. Prokaryotes, eukaryotes. Prokaryotes, the picture on the top of this needle, like when you guys did the cells alive on the top of that pen thing. Those are E. coli, rod-shaped bacteria. They're the simplest, oldest cells, organisms. They are unicellular, even though there's some specialization that can go on, where one can make more proteins that allows it to do a different task than another. So kind of cool, they can work as a team, kind of like the staff here can work as a team. I do a different job than somebody else. Again, very small prokaryotes. Eukaryotes are larger. Most of them are multicellular organisms. Protista is unicellular. They have specialization with the cells. That's where we get the different tissues and the organs. Again, they have a nucleus and they have all those organelles. Nice comparison, however, not to scale. If you were to do that to scale, that prokaryote would be much smaller. The model is choosing to blow it up so you can see the parts inside. Okay, you need to remember that prokaryotes do have a cell wall. Of course, they have their membrane. They don't have a nucleus, but the area where they have their chromosome is called the nucleoid. Maybe underline that, circle it. I do want you to remember they have one chromosome. It's a circular shaped chromosome. Ours are linear. How many chromosomes do we have? Yeah, we do have 40. We have 23 pairs, awesome. 46 total. So this chromosome's in the center, basically. I'm thinking for protection of it, as well as access for all the things, all the reactions that need to happen. The other cool thing they can have are plasmids, teeny little circular pieces of DNA. These are really cool. It allows the bacteria to share genes without really reproducing. If their body's not immune to a certain antibiotic, the other bacteria cell can come, inject, they have like a little pili, like a little syringe, inject a gene that their body needs. Sounds like genetic engineering to me. Bacteria have been doing it for millions of years. Billions, actually, of years. Okay? Flagella, some of them also are mobile. Like E. coli can swim around, has flagella. They can have cilia. Come in three shapes. Now, I'm talking about the bacteria kingdom, not the archaea kingdom, which are the extremist types of bacteria or prokaryotes. Spheres, rods, spirals. These are the bacteria that are all around us. You have more bacteria cells in you than you have human cells. Think about this. Your cells have bacteria inside them. Lots of them, some of them. But we need these bacteria. They help us. We've evolved with the bacteria. So you are more bacterial than you are human. If you really want to get down to it. Okay, kind of cool. Okay, what else? You guys do, when I say bacteria, you might think negatively. Stop it. Because without them, there is no us. Because what are the two main things they do? Actually, kind of three main things. Hold on one sec. What are the three main things they do? Decompose, keeps that circle of life going, right? Freeing up the dead things, getting down to the molecules so the trees can absorb it. And what else do? They produce, they're primary producers. That means they can be photoautotrophs, right? They can collect the energy from the sun, start the food web, food chain. You guys with me on that? Okay, so pretty awesome. However, yes, some of them do attack our cells. Normally, they don't kill us. There are some very, very few types of bacteria that will. Think about it from their perspective. If they kill you, did they just kill themselves? Unless at least they can care about their next generation, maybe at least pass on their next generation to somebody else. These are parasites, right? Mm-hmm.
So is that why a lot of people would say,
Yeah, so antibiotics are a huge, going through a huge problem right now. So antibiotics are other organisms, basically, or chemicals that will kill or stop bacteria from reproducing. This is how we treat our bacterial infections, by taking antibiotics. Better yet, let your immune system fight them and don't give yourself antibiotics. What is happening, and this is going to be a main problem for you for right now, it's a problem for right now, our generation, is the resistance to our medicines that are fighting these infections. And this is mostly because of overuse of antibiotics. You guys do not take antibiotics for your viruses. It won't make you better. But what you just did is you just killed a bunch of bacteria in your body, and you left the ones that are resistant to the medicines. So now the bacteria that's alive of you, if it's like, oh, this person seemed a little weak, let's attack, let's build up, let's reproduce. Now that antibiotic will not kill them anymore, and you have no way of fighting that infection. Not to get on it too much, but that has ended up what took my mom. She went in for just a heart surgery thing that she did great with, but then got an infection right after from MRSA. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. That's a resistant strand of staph, and it's very common in hospitals. So this is a huge concern. So you guys, when you go to the doctor and you get medicine, find out what's going on. How are they treating you? What are they treating? They will love if you ask those questions, especially coming from a young person. Okay? So know what's going on with your guys' medicines and what you're putting in your body.
what about when you get a big cut and they put
So Right. So it depends. If you get a cut at first, you don't need an antibiotic at first. You just need to clean it really good and keep it clean. Stop the bacteria from growing. But then it could get infected, and then you might need like a triple antibiotic cream, like a Neosporin, and you're going to maybe need to do that. Your immune system probably could fight it quicker too. Not necessarily quicker, can fight it. No, you're going to have to watch it because bacteria is everywhere, and you don't want to get an infection. And then there's that also another type of staph that can go. Have you ever seen where you've got an infection where they draw a circle around it? And they're watching to see if that spreads. Because some of these can get pretty scary because of our overuse of antibiotics, though. So know what you got and what's going on. Okay, ask your doctor what's going on. Okay, so then, again, there are a few, though, that obviously make us sick, and another reason why we want to understand this. Okay, we're almost done, so hang in here with me. Just quickly going through the little organelles, the little organs. You guys know a lot about plasma membranes already and cell walls, and you guys need to make sure you know their functions, like nucleus stores DNA, protects the DNA. Nucleoli, I'm not going to overly worry about, but if you want a little bit more, right, that helps with RNA. Cytosol. Now I want to straighten this out because a lot of us have learned that the stuff inside the cell is called cytoplasm. Is that right? It's really the liquidy stuff is known as cytosol, and cytoplasm refers to everything that's in the cell, really, including the cytosol. Okay? Awesome. They have their own skeletal system like we have ours, called the cytoskeleton. Remember, cy means cell. I remember like endocytosis and exocytosis. So look at this awesome skeleton. It's made out of fibers, and they have different types. They have tubules and filaments and microfilaments, and that's a highway basically for transferring things from movement as well as support and structure, holding things in place. Ribosomes. Did I mention this one to you guys already? What do ribosomes do? They make proteins. Memorize that right now. They're all over the place. And then that leads us to that ER, the endoplasmic reticulum. Some of it is called smooth because it doesn't have the ribosomes attached. Some of it is attached, and so it's called rough ER. And you could see it on the teal color part of the model. And if it's studded or embedded with ribosomes, it's rough ER. The ER has to do with modifying the proteins, storing the proteins, shipping the proteins, so they have a tight relationship. Again, these things, you guys, are made out of membranes. Okay, Golgi apparatus, like I said, membranes. This is more like the post office. Packaging, transporting, moving things around so they make vesicles. Again, these are membrane systems. Now, some of these things, these vesicles are made even by Golgi apparatus, these little storage containers, like lysosomes. And here, this is where food can get inside, or chemicals can be stored and digested. So those are little lysosomes, again, made out of membranes. Vacuoles, like we mentioned, the central vacuole in the plant, stores water, can store nutrients. Look at this last one. 90% of the volume in a mature plant consists of the vacuole. So that cell is plumped up with one big sac, a membrane sac full of water. Do you remember when we talked about osmosis? Do plant cells like to have a bunch of water in them for support? Okay, so that's all in that vacuole. You guys know a lot about chloroplasts and mitochondria, I hope. If not, please read some tonight. I mentioned a teeny bit about centrioles, didn't I? Yeah. Cell separation, that's for cell division. It gives sides to the cell. Also, there's cilia for movement, and there's flagella, and that's where I'm going to stop. Okay? So that's the end of part